everybody. I would like to call to order the special meeting of Anchorage Assembly. It is Monday, September 20, 2021. We are noticed from 1 to 2 p.m. We'll go ahead and start with the roll. Madam Clerk.
Madam Chair. Mr. Weddleton.
Here.
Can't hear you.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Present.
Mr. Rivera.
Present.
Ms. Kennedy.
Here.
Ms. LaFrance.
Here.
Mr. Constant.
Here.
Ms. Zolotel.
Here.
Mr. Dunbar.
Here.
Mr. Presberdia. I understand he's excused.
Mr. Presberdia is traveling and is excused.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Quinn Davidson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Constant, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
I will read the land acknowledgement. If folks in the back, please would refrain from making comments out of turn. We will have the audience participation at the end of the meeting. A land acknowledgement is a formal statement recognizing the indigenous people of a place. It is a public gesture of appreciation for the past and present indigenous stewardship of the lands that we now occupy. It is an actionable statement that marks our collective movement towards decolonization and equity. The Anchorage Assembly would like to acknowledge that we gather today on the traditional lands of the Dena'ina Athabascans. For thousands of years, the Dena'ina have been and continue to be the stewards of this land. It is with gratefulness and respect that we recognize the contributions, innovations, and contemporary perspectives of the Upper Cook Inlet Dena'ina. So today's special meeting is scheduled from 1 to 2 p.m. and will adjourn promptly at 2 p.m. if not move for adjournment sooner. There is time allotted for audience participation, which we'll take up after items of business conclude. Audience participation will end no later. It's my intent to end it at 1:50 to allow for agenda item 6, assembly comments, since we did not have time to do that last time. All in attendance are requested to wear masks. I see some people are not wearing face coverings, and there are masks available outside the door. Occupancy is limited to 50 people to accommodate for social distancing. Also want to note that have been some questions about this meeting not being properly noticed, and then I'll ask Mr. Gates to speak to that in a moment. I want to also mention that today's only action that's expected is to introduce items for public hearing at the meeting of September 28th. We oftentimes will hold a special meeting to do this so that we can get items scheduled for public hearing at the next regular assembly meeting. I also want to call attention to Charter Section 10.01, Introduction and Enactment of Ordinances, where it references that the public hearing shall be held at least 7 days after publication of the notice of an ordinance. So again, the reason for this special meeting is simply to get items introduced for public hearing. And Mr. Gates, would you be able to speak to the notice requirements concerning this special meeting and how it was noticed?
Sure. Let me know if I need to speak up, Madam Chair. So the notice requirements are published on the municipality's public notice webpage. We had some code change and a charter amendment 10 years ago or so that allowed us to do this electronically. And so that's the minimal public notice requirements that we have that dedicated municipal public notice page. So shortly after this happens, the clerk needs a little time to accomplish that application.
So, and just if you would clarify, has this meeting been appropriately noticed?
Today's meeting, yes, special meetings require a notice describing the subject matter of the special meeting. And our agenda published last Friday, I believe it was, included the subject matter here. Although people may customarily used to see the title of the ordinance document and so forth, that's not necessarily the requirement of notice for special meetings. Special meetings require 24 hours notice. And we have that, and we have the subject matter to be discussed today. And I believe that meets all the legal requirements for today's meeting, the purposes of introduction of some ordinances that are supposed to be laid on the table.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. And that brings us
You're
to
welcome.
item 4, item of business. And there are 2 ordinances laid on the table. And so, Madam Clerk, I will go ahead and read those, both of them, into the record. And it's my understanding we need a motion and vote to lay these on the table, or lay the one on the table. No.
Madam Chair, I believe
Oh,
that we need
yes.
a motion to-
That's right.
A second and a third.
Okay, that's right, because these are only being scheduled for public hearing. So I will read the first one into the record, and in order to be scheduled again for public hearing, it needs a first, a second, and a third. Thank you for the clarification. The first one, unnumbered AO 2021-blank, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly regarding public health and safety measures for the COVID-19 pandemic. Is there a motion for a?
Move to introduce. Second. Third.
Okay. This AO has been moved for introduction. It has a first, moved by Ms. Zelato, seconded by Mr. Peterson, and I believe the third was Ms. Quinn Davidson. So this item is now scheduled for a public hearing to be before the Assembly at the September 28th meeting. Next, we have AO number 2021-blank, an ordinance of the Anchorage Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code Section 2.30.095 and 3.20.020 and Chapter 3.30 regarding mayoral appointments to principal, executive, or department head positions and Assembly confirmation. Is there a motion?
Move to introduce.
Second.
Third.
Okay, moved by Mr. Constant, seconded by Mr. Dunbar, and I believe the third was
3 people.
Three people?
Yeah.
Third, fourth.
I have
Fourth,
Mr.
fifth, and
Rivera as the third.
Mr. Rivera as the third. Okay, so this ordinance will be before the Assembly at the regularly scheduled meeting of September 28th. Okay, that brings us to 5, audience participation.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, I texted.
Go
my
ahead,
computer.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Allard.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that it's clear,
And excuse me, Ms. Allard, are you requesting a moment of personal privilege?
sure, I'm
Okay.
requesting a moment of personal privilege.
I am granting you a moment of personal privilege.
Thank you, Chair LaFrance. It's clear that this assembly has a savior complex and is hell-bent on violating public constitutional rights. This body will not stop until they get what they want. There is no doubt the assembly is absolutely exceeding its authority. We are a legislative branch, and we have an executive branch in which the assembly continues to disregard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. I don't see anyone else in the queue or any requests. Okay, so
Just a quick rebuttal now. I just would say
point of
that
personal privilege to Mr. Constant.
that is a member's opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. Thank you, Ms. Allard. Okay, now we have audience participation, and you will have 3 minutes. Let me pull up the timer here. When you come up, please state your name for the record, and please refrain from any personal attacks. Mr. Haberman, are you up to speak next? Okay. I think that's probably,
There's no list, nor phone, there's no way for people to be even signing up by phone.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Haberman.
My name is Eugene Kyle Haberman, I represent myself, follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, a decision made by the governing body is more likely the public interest. First, I'd like to remind you of my comments Tuesday night toward the end, where Assemblymember Aller tried to bring an item on the consent agenda, and I was appalled the way it was handled, because I said, is you cannot interfere with basically an idea and part of a conversation, and especially Assemblymember Allard, I'm saddened by the way things were running. But I'm also as much saddened by what happened Saturday. Where was the public notice? I have no problem at all with people getting together and discussing things, particularly bring people together on issues that are having a concern in the community, particularly dealing with COVID. But you do not create an environment where you selectively let certain people know and other people don't know. And even the security in the SAC library, principal one in charge, had no clue that that meeting was going to be held. And the idea of security is you bring in to protect the people in that room, both elected or anyone in that room. And this has been a sad chapter. It's also created a situation where by selectively bringing certain people in, others are not there. And we all need to hear from each other respectfully, but that's not what happened. I wasn't there. I came across it in Musgrave, Alaska, and it was too late for me to be a active witness to what happened there. But I am aware that there was inappropriately bringing people together and notice. You can say that, oh, we didn't have that many assembly members, so forth, there didn't need to be a public notice. But what the concept of a listening session is to bring everyone together, let everyone know about it properly, and put it on the Muni website. Proper notice. Even if it's called a listening session, whether the mayor wants to do it, the assembly wants to do it, anyone wants to do it. But that was not done. It was that the motive was clear, is to bring certain people that they agreed with them to come together and listen and say we're against X or we're for Y. And the end result is it's resulted in more division, more frustration in the community, in our state. I fear for the future. And also concerned about this room being used as assembly meetings or any meetings. This room was not fit before COVID to have assembly meetings. And certainly during COVID, it was not fit. And this is the third special meeting of the assembly holding in this room. It should be in LUSAC Library. That's where it belongs, in the assembly chambers, not here. To bring people together and not in this close situation where technology doesn't really work for the people and the assembly. So I close with that, with my time up, but we can do a lot better, but it looks like it's not going to get any better. Thank you.
Thank you for your participation.
Hello,
Welcome.
Irene Queet now. First of all, I went on the Muni website at 12:30 today, and these documents, the only thing that was on there was the agenda, none of these documents. It says on the back of the agenda, all documents listed on this agenda are available online at muni.org/watchnow. These were not available. In terms of the confirmations, the changes that you want to make, I want to speak on the record to the non-confirmation of Sammy Graham. You know it was political. We know it was political, and no amount of reading the rules that the decision is not supposed to be political will take that away. On the COVID things, like I testified on the last assembly meeting, you have pressured and incentivized and coerced and bullied and socially shamed and guilt-tripped and threatened. And because that's not working, now you're forcing. And obviously, I'm against that. The numbers there, 59.3% say fully vaccinated, 67.1% one shot. On the dashboard, the report for July, it doesn't show August yet. It says that breakthrough cases from fully vaccinated people are 29.6%. And they only count people who have had both shots and are past the 2-week period. So anybody who has had one shot is counted as non-vaccinated. And that is another tactic to make the numbers sound small so that you can still continue to claim that the vaccine is the savior of everything. Thank you.
Thank you for your participation. Welcome.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Louis Imbriani. I am currently on my own time. I'm on leave from my other job. Like Ms. Quidno said that these were not available for reading. So just after reading through them, I'll tell you one thing right now. This ordinance can't be enforced. You can do your best. Like I said before, we won't comply. It will not, and it cannot be enforced because it conflicts with the charter. So you can either table it or we can go through this goat and pony show again. I mean, the muni is done. We don't want to deal with it. Face coverings, face shields, they're medical devices. That's what the FDA says. The FDA classifies anything for the prevention of COVID as a medical device. By you mandating a medical device onto somebody who's not under your care as a doctor, you're overstepping your bounds, overstepping your authority. Somebody wants to wear it, awesome. They want to take it upon themselves after consulting their doctor or what they feel will be the best thing to protect themselves, great. I mean, we heard it at the last assembly meeting. There was an assembly member who didn't want to be there because of the social distancing, because people weren't wearing masks, and they decided to do what was the best thing for them or what they thought was the very best thing for them to protect themselves and their family. We want to be afforded the same thing. We want to be able to do what we feel is right. We want to be able to do what we want to do to best prevent or protect our family. And that doesn't allow for this. It's one-sided, it goes against the charter, and it oversteps your bounds as an assembly. Thank you.
Thank you for your participation. Are there other members of the public who wish to participate? Please come forward.
Oh, since,
Welcome.
howdy. My name is Noria Clark. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, very exhausted citizen who's very tired of wasting my time and money in this community at this point. You guys had me at show me the money. So now I have to be involved because you guys keep taking my property taxes and misusing them. So 1, to the ordinance, yeah, I'm not following that, you're not my doctor. 2, vaccinations, you don't know why somebody isn't vaccinated. You don't need to know my medical history, it's none of your business, but maybe it's a medical thing that people can't do, or the masks. So the answer is no. You are not gonna take away my freedom to breathe fresh air. That is a God, whomever you wanna say, given right. That it's on this planet, it's ours. So you will not be taking that from me for sure. Now, as far as your motives go, I don't really want to hear about the special stuff anymore because it was clear when there was assembly members walking around taking up 45 minutes of our time on Tuesday, and then so eloquently, so many of you decided to vote against hearing from your public. Let me tell you right now, we took down names, all of us are very upset. Voting to not, you took 15 minutes to vote that you didn't want to hear us talk. This is going to get out of control even more so if you guys don't start listening to your constituents. And I can tell you, people are losing their minds right now. So because of this, obviously, I'm sure you saw some of the stuff that Must Free Alaska had. Here's somebody's prediction, that you're gonna pass the masking ordinance, you'll override Bronson's veto. Now, during that, you're also going to take operational control of Election Central. And this is going to be to work over the voting count for the election in April. We also need to talk about you guys moving all these lines around. What are we gonna do about that? Our districts, how are people supposed to run? Let's talk about the homeless. Do you have to actually have a residency here to vote? You don't, so you don't have to have one to run either. Is that correct? So there's a lot of things that this assembly is really lacking, but in regards to this ordinance, the big problem is that you guys are taking away our freedoms and we're very, very tired of it. And the problem is businesses are losing money. This is turning into a socialistic and soon a communistic society. We cannot afford to lose Alaskan business right now. We need everybody who's employing people. And we've got to get the people who weren't working back to work. But the other problem is those of us who have to keep wasting our time here, this is ridiculous. The most important commodity in life, and I keep saying this, I'm tired of beating my head against this wall, is time. Please quit wasting our time trying to control us in things that I've lived 38 years on this planet without you controlling my oxygen. Somehow, miraculously, ta-da, still here. I don't need your help. Don't tell me how to eat. Don't tell me what to take. Don't tell me how to breathe. I am not so infectious amongst other people that I can't be around people. And you're having people breathe into these things. You have no idea how disgusting restaurants really are. Are you going to close down that? Or foods, grocery stores? People are constantly picking their nose and touching stuff. You really think we're not going to get corona? The flu virus, we've never eradicated that with a vaccine. Why would you ever think this is going to be eradicated? That is absolutely frivolous thinking on your part.
Ma'am, your time is up.
I would thank you, but there's only a few of you that I actually respect and appreciate.
Thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
Sir, come forward if you'd like to participate.
I would like to
Please
participate.
state your name for the record.
Thank you, Ms. France. Love France. My name is TJ Beers, B as in boy, EERS, just like the alcoholic beverage. I'm a homeless man. And I want to thank this assembly, every one of you, but I want to ask Ms. Allard why you voted against the homeless board, because I know that I support the mayor's position with his board about the homeless, but it's got to be one-sided on your part, sir, and no disrespect. I would imagine it's biased. So when you all overrid his veto, I was very happy.
And sir, please step back a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see no lines. I'm not gonna get zapped by lasers or something, am I? So, I've been reading a lot about you. A lot of us have, and it's been making its way back to Maine and Boston. And I want to know, when are you all going to settle your personal business before you even have these meetings? Because, what is it? Somebody's videotaping and is ending up on TikTok. And it's like you're secretly videotaping each other and putting each other on the internet and social media. I think it should be an ordinance now that you should create, preventing anybody from doing that. That is just vicious and wrong. It sends a wrong message to the community. I expect to come here and see you act like adults. I'm embarrassed and shocked and ashamed of you all. I will tell you what happened to me. There was so much crime with the homelessness in Maine, I decided to do a one-man march. I walked 62 miles from Portland, Maine to Augusta, bringing the message of ending homelessness, stopping discrimination against homeless people, and punishing those people that do. I also wanted hate crime legislation enacted because I am tired of seeing my homeless friends die, being assaulted, and having their rights and civil liberties and freedoms violated, infringed upon, encroached upon by law enforcement agencies, property owners, and I'm tired of seeing us being herded into places. Our freedom is important, but the situation we are in is horrific. And I bet none of you have ever stayed at a homeless shelter. If you have, you would want to make changes. Well, my 62 miles up to Augusta ended up with me memorizing 36 police officers' names from 8 cities because everybody was calling the police every day saying, there's a homeless man with a shopping cart picking up trash and litter on the highway. Go stop him. Thank you. My time is up.
Thank you.
I will be back. I am living at the Sullivan Arena, and I am cleaning it because it is a pigsty.
Thank you for your participation.
Thank you for having me, folks. I'll be back.
I've got a member in the queue for you, sir. Ms. Allard.
I would encourage you to get with Felix Rivera or any of the other members that voted for that homeless board and apply to be on it.
I don't want to be on it. I represent the Most High, which is God.
Thank you, Ms. LaFrance.
We will be watching you very closely.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to participate? Please come forward.
Sure.
Welcome. Please state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Mariana Nelson. I am medical professional, RN, with a three state license that I literally let go because I will not be part of what is going on today in our hospitals. It just doesn't agree with my code of ethic. I, as a nurse, I always respected science, but science also has to include gift of discernment and our critical thinking. And I took the time to take pictures of the mask that you are providing from China, and basically said it's not for medical use. So what are you guys actually promoting? I would like to know. I was in hospitals in any setting, required twice a year to be trained how to properly put those medical devices that you think you have a right to enforce. I believe, and I am a refugee from another country that basically was swallowed by communism, so I know all things that I see already on horizon. When you restrict people's personal choice, you are actually a tyrant, no matter what label you're gonna put it. And forgive me, this is my second language. I'm very blunt. That's why my patient liked me, because I speak in blunt, simple language that everybody can understand. If you doubt what I already stated about the medical device that you're promoting, and I will be saving this because someday I believe reason will prevail. Right now, I don't know if we are globally deranged. I have no idea, but it doesn't make any sense. I will refer and encourage all of you to Google, which I'm pleasantly surprised that OSHA didn't take it off already and rephrase it, because that's what Marxists do. They use new word, new terminology for same things. So OSHA old thing says the respiratory protection standards require for all businesses, poor little businesses that had to follow that you have 19.5% oxygen level. Anything below is considered deficient atmosphere, which is also atmosphere. Underneath, you are providing an unhealthy, and it says that is considered immediate danger for health and life. You guys,
Your time is up, ma'am.
I would like to finish about children. You
Please
requiring
speak in
children
your
to wear those masks.
Ma'am,
They have a much
time is up.
more requirement of oxygen.
thank you for your participation.
Of
You can
course.
you can email your comments to members.
Yeah.
As well. Thank you.
Just remember, children, they need more oxygen.
Thank you, ma'am. And I just want to remind folks too, there will be time to testify on the items that were scheduled for public meeting at the meeting of September 28th. Welcome.
Welcome. My name is Francesca Alagrezza, and I have the Alaska State Constitution. I'm pretty sure you all haven't read it. You're putting forth unconstitutional ordinances that you think that we have to listen to. So first section, we have inherent rights. The Constitution is dedicated to the principle that all persons have the natural right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and the enjoyment of the rewards of their own industry, and that all persons are equal and entitled to equal rights. You can't have unvaccinated and vaccinated rights. We are all equal. Opportunities and protection under the law, and that all persons have corresponding obligations to the people and to the state. The source of government is we the people, not you. We're not your slaves, we're not your servants. You don't get to tell us how to live our lives and what medical procedures or masks that we have to wear. I'm not in a contract with you. I do not consent. We have freedom of religion. People don't want to cover their face to their religion, and you're infringing on that. We have a right to due process. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or the property without due process of law. The right of all persons to fair and just treatment in the course of legislation and executive investigations shall not be infringed. And we also have a right to privacy. The right of the people to privacy is recognized and shall not be infringed, and the legislature shall implement this section. You are going to have businesses enforce mask mandates and divide the city even more. We have the right to equally participate in society and not be put into two classes. This is disgusting and shame on you. Shame on you.
Thank you for your participation. Welcome.
Hi, Donna Celia for the record. My question for you is, why do you guys keep returning to the same steps and procedures that have been tried in the past but did not slow down or stop the pandemic from happening? Several months ago, I took the time to adjust our state's collected data for Anchorage and Mat-Su by population so that I would be able to compare the data from those two communities apples to apples. And I provided all of you with a copy of this graph showing the course of the epidemic through 2020. It also shows that the mask mandate was initially instituted on, I believe, June 26th, 2020. But you can see, based on this graph, that it did nothing to slow down or stop the pandemic. A mask mandate is not going to have any effect on the progress of this pandemic any longer. I know I sent it to you. The other thing that recently occurred, and I want to bring to everybody's attention, is that our state chief medical officer, Dr. Ann Zink, claimed that 95% of the cases that are hospitalized are people who are unvaccinated. She cited data that spanned from January 1 to July 10th of 2021. But the vaccine was not available to the general public until March 9th of 2021. So that data set incorrectly included 2.5 months, 3 months and 9 days worth of data for people that generally had no access to the vaccine in the first place. So I put in a FOIA request to the DHS, and I asked them specifically for the data adjusted from March 9th to July 10th so that we could find out what those numbers were. I repeated this request with different representatives at DHS for 2 straight weeks. I finally received an answer in writing. The answer was, we don't have time. They decided they wouldn't fill my FOIA request because they didn't have time. Last thing, there are things that can be done to help prevent people from going to the hospital. In particular, there is still to this day only one ambulatory treatment protocol that has ever been published in peer-reviewed literature. That ambulatory protocol is designed to treat people with COVID from the point of diagnosis all the way through the point of intubation. In other words, it's stepwise approach to treating COVID from the time you have your first signs and symptoms all the way up to the point where you have a very serious case. And it's been shown clinically to reduce hospitalizations by 80%. That protocol is pathophysiological basis and rationale for early outpatient treatment of SARS-CoV-2 infection. It was published in August of last year, and the author is Dr. Peter McAuliffe. On it, on it are some procedures that our own state health department has labeled as inappropriate for use. And now doctors are being dissuaded from using those protocols. Protocols that I can tell you right now have been demonstrated to reduce hospitalizations. Why would you return to things that we already know don't work and ignore the things that do?
Please go ahead and email your comments. Thank you for your participation. Are there any other members of the public who wish to participate?
My name is Frank McQuarrie. A lot of fear and anger here. I'm not going to indulge, but I just want to point out it should be clear to everybody here that you folks are not considering the current state of the scientific opinions about what's going on. The history of this has been one starting with bureaucratic incompetence when probably 200,000 elderly people were effectively murdered by being sent back to by having COVID positive patients being sent back to nursing homes. The deaths are primarily older people, such as myself, people with immune compensation. You're also considering, so follow the science, it's changing. Somewhere between 62 million and 110 million, according to CDC statistics, probably have full natural immunity, yet they're going to be forced, if folks with your line of thinking continue to have vaccines that won't help them a bit, because if they don't get the vaccine, even though they don't need it, they will lose their jobs, they will lose their ability to travel, they will lose all kinds of things. Back off from the emotion. You may be insulted by some of us. We may be insulted by some of the things you say, but there is such a thing as logic and there's such a thing as ethics, and you need to start backing up and approaching it from that standpoint. The current scientific data is telling us all kinds of things. It's telling there were therapeutics that should have been used from day one to prevent people from getting to the hospital. Now we're seeing the federal government do a takeover of monoclonal antibodies to limit its availability in certain states. That's not scientific, that's pure politics. Get the politics out of this and try to save some lives, try to restore the economy of our state, our city, and don't take any of this stuff personally. Engage your intelligence, for God's sakes. You shouldn't be at war with the citizens of Anchorage, and that's what this looks like. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your participation. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Anderson. I wanted to ask quickly, I know you probably won't answer, but when Mr. Beers came up and stood about here, I think, why didn't you tell him to move back? Was it a social distancing thing? Because I'm looking back at the public here who has a row of three rows of 7 seats that are jammed literally shoulder to shoulder. But one of the things you always talk about, that you always tell us to do, is social distance. So by choosing this room, which you have done repeatedly, you have forced the public to not social distance. You are not good stewards of your own words. We are very disappointed in your actions. We hope you will do better. Honestly, don't really expect it. I really hope you do better. I really hope you listen to the last 2 people who talked about other therapies that have been shown to work in other countries that are not ruled by CDC and WHO. If you can't get past that, if all you're focused on is your little political power here in Anchorage, the city is going to be hurt even further. The businesses are going to be hurt even further. And most importantly, the people are going to be hurt even further.
Thank you for your participation. Are there any other members of the public who wish to participate? Welcome.
Thank you, Chair LaFrance. My name is Mario Bird. I live and work as an attorney here in Anchorage. I want to briefly address the legality of the separation of powers doctrine that was brought up earlier. The Supreme Court has recently ruled on separation of powers in the context of the state versus recall Dunleavy election, and it held in that case that when it is alleged that there's a separation of powers, that's a viable cause for a recall election. I don't want any more recalls. I would rather see our assembly members serve and fulfill their oaths and uphold the laws. What we have here in the municipal code is, number 1, a a very clear delineation that the assembly has legislative powers, and number two, the mayor has executive powers. That's Title II and Title III. That follows from the Alaska statute, Title 29, that lays out the same dichotomy of powers. You have very competent counsel. I'm not worried about that. But before the assembly takes the step of muddying the waters regarding separation of powers, it should really look at that case, and I'll give you the site. It's State versus Recall Dunleavy, 491 Pacific 3rd, 343, especially discussion at 365 through 371. It's a viable cause for recall as recently ruled by our Supreme Court when there's an alleged violation of separation of powers. I'd like the recalls to stop. Please do not violate the separation of powers found in Alaska statute and in the Muni Code. Thank you.
Thank you for your participation. Are there any other members of the public who would like to participate? Please come forward if you'd like to speak. I don't see anyone else. Seeing no one else, we'll go ahead and move on to number 6, assembly comments. And we'll go ahead around the room and start with Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will just simply say at this point, I'm rather shocked by what I've seen, but we will have further conversation on the 28th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Ms. Allard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just encourage the public to come out and testify. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Mr. Weddleton, any comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weddleton. Mr. Dunbar?
No comment, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. Mr. Constant?
Nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. I will go to the phone. Ms. Quinn Davidson, any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank you for running this meeting despite all of the disruptions and yelling. Thank you again for being such a great chair.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn Davidson. Mr. Peterson, any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No comment today.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Ms. Zelatel, any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No comment.
Thank you, Ms. Zelatel. Mr. Rivera, any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No comment.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Thank you all for being here today. And at this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.
Here we go.